अस्सलामु अलैकुम वरहमतुल्लाहि वबरकातुहू। तो एक बार आप सबका खुश आमदीद है। इस वीडियो में आप सबका खुश आमदीद है। और ये कंप्यूटर सीरीज़ का सेट 3 होने वाला है और इस सेट में हम 100 क्वेश्चंस करेंगे। 100 क्वेश्चंस को देखेंगे क्योंकि हमने 2 सेट ऑलरेडी अपलोड कर दिए हैं JKSB एस्पिरेंट्स के लिए और बाकी जितने भी कम्पिटिटिव एग्ज़ाम्स हैं। और ये MCQs हम जल्दी करते हैं क्योंकि इसमें ज़्यादा टाइम नहीं लगाते हैं। अगर हमें पता है टाइम आपका ज़्यादा नहीं लगना चाहिए, तो मैं आपको 4 से 5 सेकंड 5 से 6 सेकंड देता हूँ, मतलब आंसर करने के लिए। आप पॉज़ लेकर भी आंसर कर सकते हो। आप अपने साथ एक नोटबुक भी रख सकते हो जब तक मैं आंसर रिवील करूँ। तो ये मैंने जैसे आपसे ये पहले ही बोला था कि जो तीसरा सेट आएगा वो लेवल अप होगा। उसकी लेवल उन 2 सेट्स के उन 2 सेट से मतलब ज़्यादा अच्छी होगी। वो हाई लेवल होगा, हाई प्रायोरिटी होगा। तो उसी अपनी कॉल को मैंने ज़िंदा रखा, तो उसी बात को आगे बढ़ाते हुए ये सेट हम शुरू कर रहे हैं। आपका टाइम बिना गवाए तो आपने वीडियो को पूरा देखना है, मुकम्मल देखना है। आपका फ़ायदा ही होगा, नुकसान कोई नहीं होगा। तो आप वीडियो को स्पीड अप करने की भी ज़रूरत नहीं है क्योंकि मैं ऑलरेडी तेज़ MCQs जल्दी जल्दी आपको हर क्वेश्चन का आंसर बताऊंगा। आपको भी वक्त दूंगा, आपको भी मौका दूंगा उसको आंसर करने के लिए। जब तक मैं ऑप्शन पढूं तब तक आप आंसर कर दो। बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। इन द context of IPv4, what is the loopback address range and what is its primary use? ऑप्शंस आपके सामने हैं और ऑप्शंस आप पढ़ सकते हो। पहला ऑप्शन है 10, 192, 224, 127। तो राइट आंसर क्या हो सकता है? राइट आंसर लास्ट वन है, 127 to 127 यूज टू टेस्ट द नेटवर्क इंटरफेस कार्ड NIC विदाउट सेंडिंग। आपने याद रखना है 127 to 127, ऐसे याद रखना है। बाकी आपको ये याद नहीं रह सकता, तो इसलिए आप ऐसे याद रखो 127 to 127 और लास्ट के डिजिट याद रख लो। उसमें कितने डिजिट्स हैं जहाँ से शुरू होता है। लूप बैक एड्रेस, व्हाट इज़ द लूप बैक एड्रेस रेंज एंड व्हाट इज़ इट्स प्राइमरी यूज़। IPv4 इन द कंटेक्स्ट ऑफ IPv4। तो 127 में 127 में 127 से 127 तक याद रखो और लास्ट के डिजिट्स याद रखो, बस याद रह जाएगा। Which SQL constraint ensures that the value in a column must satisfy a specific condition? For example, age 18। तो ये चेक, इसका राइट आंसर है चेक। कांस्टेंट लिमिट इज द वैल्यू रेंज दैट कैन प्लेस्ड इन ए कॉलम। What is the difference between SRAM, static RAM, and RAM, dynamic RAM? SRAM must be refreshed thousands of times per second. RAM retains data as long as। तो इसका जो राइट आंसर है, SRAM is faster, more expensive and used for cache. RAM is slower, cheaper and used for main memory। तो अगला क्वेश्चन हमारे पास है, इन द OSI मॉडल segmentation and reassembly of data occur at which layer? Transport layer. Layer 4 breaks large data into smaller segments for transmission and reassembles them at the destination. What does the term paging refer to in memory management? Paging का क्या मतलब होता है memory management में? Memory management scheme that retrieves data from secondary storage in same size blocks called pages, organizing files on the desktop, sending alerts to the administrator, moving the entire process to disk। तो इसका करेक्ट आंसर क्या हो सकता है आपके मुताबिक? तो इसका करेक्ट आंसर हो सकता है ए मेमोरी मैनेजमेंट स्कीम दैट रिट्रीव्स डेटा फ्रॉम सेकेंडरी स्टोरेज इन सेम साइज ब्लॉक्स। और यही इसका राइट आंसर भी है। Which of the following Excel functions counts the number of cells that are not empty? तो इसका जो राइट आंसर है वो है काउंटा ऑल cells that have any value, text, numbers, errors, effectively count all. In MS Word, what is hanging indent? MS Word में hanging indent का क्या मतलब है? The first line is indented, subsequent lines are flush out left. The first line is flush left, all subsequent lines are indented. Text is centered, all lines are indented from the left. तो इसका correct answer है the first line is flush left, all subsequent lines are indented. Which of the following is true about UDP, यूजर डेटाग्राम प्रोटोकॉल? तो आपने इसकी फुल फॉर्म भी याद रखनी है यूडीपी की, क्योंकि कभी ये भी पूछा जा सकता है कि यूडीपी स्टैंड्स फॉर इट्स कनेक्शन ओरिएंटेड, इट गारंटीज data delivery, it's a connectionless unreliable protocol used for speed streaming via VoIP, it performs extensive error checking. So it's a connectionless unreliable protocol used for speed. In Boolean algebra, what is the dual of the expression a plus b? So a, to find the dual, swap or plus with and swap 0 with 1. Which component of a database management system DBMS ensures that concurrent transactions do not interfere with each other? Recovery manager, query optimizer, concurrency control manager, log manager, buffer manager. तो आपने इसका करेक्ट आंसर बताना है. Concurrency control manager is right among. In MS PowerPoint, transition refers to. MS PowerPoint में transition क्या होती है? Changing the design theme, the sound effect on a click, the visual effect that occurs when you move from one slide to the next, movement of objects on a slide, the visual effect that occurs when you move from one slide to the next. What is the specific role of the program counter PC register in the CPU? Specific rule क्या है program counter का register in the CPU? What is the specific role of the program counter PC register in the CPU? It holds the address of the next instruction to be fetched from memory. It counts the numbers. It stores the result. It holds the current instruction. So it holds the address of the next instruction to be fetched from memory. It points the CPU to where it needs to go next. Which of the following is a class B IP address? Class B IP address इनमें से कौन सा वाला है? तो 172 जो क्लास बी है, क्लास बी की जो रेंज है वो 128 से 191 तक है, और क्लास ए की रेंज जो है वो 1 से 126 तक है. In MS Excel, if you want to combine the first name in cell A1 and last name in cell B1 with a space in between, which formula is correct? A1 and आप देख सकते हो ऑप्शन सी इसका करेक्ट आंसर है. Which type of firewall filters traffic based on source and destination IP addresses and port numbers only stateless? तो इसका करेक्ट आंसर है पैकेट फिल्टरिंग फायरवॉल. The simplest type, it looks at the header of each packet in isolation. What is DMA, direct memory access, primarily used to avoid? high power consumption, memory fragmentation. Option A is high power consumption. Option B is fragmentation. Option C is CPU overhead during large data transfer, deadlocks. So CPU overhead during large data transfers is, what is DMA? Direct memory access primarily used to avoid CPU overhead during large data transfers. In MS Access, which field property ensures that a user enters data in a specific format? Input mask is correct answer. Which of the following describes context switching in an operating system? Option A is switching between different user accounts, changing the desktop background, switch from kernel mode to user mode, the process of storing the state of the active process so it can be resumed later, and loading the state of the next process. यही वाला इसका सही आंसर है, करेक्ट आंसर है. What is the function of the ARP address resolution protocol? की क्या function है? To route packets across the internet, to find the MAC address corresponding to a known IP address, to find the IP address corresponding to a MAC address, to assign IP address dynamically. तो इसका correct answer है I. To find the MAC address corresponding to a known IP address. Which logical operation is represented by the expression A and B or not A? A implies B is correct. In the context of IPv4, which of the following IP address is a link local address? A PIPA automatically assigned when a DHCP server is unreachable. तो इसका करेक्ट आंसर है 169. Which component of the CPU is responsible for translating virtual addresses into physical addresses? कौन सा कंपोनेंट CPU का रिस्पॉन्सिबल है ट्रांसलेटिंग वर्चुअल एड्रेसेस को? जो कौन सा कंपोनेंट CPU का वर्चुअल एड्रेस को ट्रांसलेट करता है फिजिकल एड्रेस में? ALU, CU, FPU. तो वो है MMU, मेमोरी मैनेजमेंट यूनिट. फिजिकल में. In relational algebra database theory, which operation is denoted by the Greek letter sigma? तो वो है selection is correct answer. What is the primary function of the spanning tree protocol (STP) in networking? To route packets between different subnets, to increase bandwidth by aggregating links, to prevent bridge loops, switching loops in a redundant network topology, to assign IP address. In C++ or Java, what is method overloading? Defining multiple methods with the same name but different parameter lists signatures within the same class. Which RAID level uses bit level stripping with a dedicated parity disk? कौन सी RAID यूज करती है bit level stripping with a dedicated parity disk? RAID 3 uses byte level stripping and a dedicated parity disk. In the TCP header, what is the function of the window size field? It determines the size of the packet header. It specifies the priority of the packet. It holds the checksum or error detection. It used for flow control, indicating the amount of data the receiver is willing to accept. Which of the following describes the weight die scheme for deadlock prevention? Weight die scheme for deadlock prevention. Resources are preempted based on priority only. If an older process requests the resource held by a younger process, the older process waits. Processes are never killed. If an older process requests resource held by a younger process, the option B is correct. If an older process requests a resource held by younger process, the older process waits. Wait die scheme for डेडलॉक प्रिवेंशन। इनमें से यही वाला ऑप्शन वेट डाई स्कीम जो डेडलॉक प्रिवेंशन के लिए उसे डिस्क्राइब करता है। अगर ओल्डर प्रोसेस रिक्वेस्ट रिसोर्सेज हेल्ड बाय यंगर प्रोसेस, द ओल्डर प्रोसेस वेट्स। व्हाट इज द रिजल्ट ऑफ द एक्सेल फार्मूला सीलिंग 25 is right. Round is 23.4 up to the nearest multiple of 5. Which type of malware disguises itself as legitimate software but carries a malicious payload? Trojan horse is correct. In IP security, which protocol provides confidentially encryption of the data payload? AHIKE, AH authentication header, Internet Key Exchange, encapsulating security payload, SSL. Encapsulating security payload provides encryption, authentication, and integrity. What does the volatile keyword mean in C language? What does the volatile keyword mean in C language? To variable can be changed by external factors. Hardware interrupted, so the compiler should not optimize access to it. The variable cannot be changed. The variable is stored in errors. The variable is temporary. Keyword meaning volatile keyword mean in C language. The variable can be changed by external factors, hardware interrupted, so the compiler should not optimize access to it. Which normal which normal form normalization handles multi-value dependencies? 4NF. Fourth normal form eliminates independent multi-value dependencies. In operating system, Bilady's anomaly is a phenomenon where adding more RAM causes a crash, increasing CPU speed slows down the system, increasing the number of page frames results in more page faults. Deadlock occurs with only one process. Increase the number of page frames results in more page faults is correct. What is the purpose of the shebang? Shebang का क्या purpose है at the start of a Unix Linux script? क्या purpose है Linux? It defines the file permission. क्या ये file permission को define करता है? It's a command. It specifies the interpreter to be used to execute the script. For example, it indicates the end of the life. It specifies the interpreter to be used to execute the script. Shebang. Which logic gate is equivalent to Boolean expression? A plus B. Boolean expression. No or is not. No or is right answer. In networking, what does CSMA series stand for? Carriers sense multiple access with collision detection. Which of the following is an example of a type 1 hypervisor bare metal? तो इसका राइट आंसर क्या हो सकता है? माइक्रोसॉफ्ट हाइपर these run directly on the hardware without a host OS. In MS Excel, what's a circular reference? A reference to a pie chart formula that refers back to its own cell, linking to another workbook, a valid 3D, a formula that refers back to its own cell. Which sorting algorithm has a worst case time complexity of? आप क्वेश्चन देख लो, ऑप्शंस भी देख लो, बताओ इसका आंसर क्या है? Insertion sort is correct answer. Simple and efficient for small or nearly sorted lists. In the context of IPv6, what is the length of an address? 128 bits. Which sorting algorithm is considered stable? Merge sort. Merge sort is considered stable. What is thrashing in the context of operating system का क्या? Thrashing क्या है operating system में? Context of operating system में. Hard disk failure, security attack, network congestion. Case of paging where the CPU spends more time swapping pages than executing instructions. Excessive paging where the CPU spends more time swapping pages than executing instructions. Which design pattern restricts a class to only one instance? Singleton is correct answer. In SQL, which keyword is used to retrieve only unique values? Distinct. Select distinct column name from table name. What is the time complexity of accessing an element in an array by index? Option D is correct. Which OSI layer is responsible for end-to-end delivery and error recovery? Transport layer is responsible for end-to-end delivery. What is a zombie process in Unix Linux? A runaway process consuming 100% CPU. A process that has finished execution but still has an entry in the process table. A daemon process that has finished execution but still has an entry in the process table. is called a zombie processing unit. In Boolean algebra, which law states? Which law states this? Distributive law. What is the primary difference between TCP and UDP? TCP is reliable, guaranteed delivery. UDP is unreliable. UDP is slower than UDP. TCP uses MAC address. UDP uses IP address. TCP connectionless. TCP is reliable, guaranteed delivery. Primary difference है ये TCP और UDP का. UDP is unreliable. In C++, what does the virtual keyword indicate in a function declaration? The function supports dynamic dispatch, runtime polymorphism. इसका correct answer है. Which of the following is not a property of ACID transactions? आप ऑप्शंस देख लो, आंसर करो आराम से, फिर मैं इसका आंसर रिवील करूंगा. Integrity. The I in ACID stands for isolation. What is deadlock? Deadlock क्या है? Security breach, system crash, a situation where two or more persons are waiting for each other to. Option C is correct. Which HTTP method is idempotent and use it to retrieve a resource? Get. Safe and in idempotent retrieves data without changing state. What is the Hamming distance between 10101 and 10011? They differ in the third and the fourth positions. Which scheduling algorithm yields the minimum average waiting time? FCFS, round robin, SJF, priority. तो SJF इसका correct answer है. In a max heap, where is the smallest element located? Any leaf node. What does DNS stand for? Domain Name System. Which of these is a lossy compression format? JPEG compresses images by discarding some data. What is polymorphism? Creating new classes from old ones. The ability of a message to be displayed in more than one form. Hiding implementation details multiple. The ability of a message to be displayed in more than one form. Which command is used to change file permissions in Unix, Linux? Option D is correct. What is the default port for SSH? 22 is default port for SSH. In Excel, what does the formula now return? Current date and time. Which data structure follows LIFO, last in first out? Stack. What is normalization used for? To increase redundancy, to encrypt data, to create Backups to minimize redundancy and dependency in a database. To minimize redundancy and dependency in a database. Which of these is a NoSQL database? MongoDB. Document oriented NoSQL. What is the output of 5% to in CJava? 1. Which layer of the TCP/IP model corresponds to the OSI session presentation application layers? Application layer is correct answer. What is garbage collection in Java? Compiling code, automatic memory management, cleaning the screen, deleting. Automatic memory management. Which of the following is not a valid IP address? Invalid. This one is invalid. In Git, which command save change to the local repository? Git commit. What is big O notation used for? Describing the performance or complexity of an algorithm. Which logic gate output is true if inputs are different? XOR. What is the purpose of the kernel? Kernel का क्या purpose है? To act as the core of the OS. Which wireless standard is 802 Wi-Fi IEEE 802.11 family? What is a foreign key? A field that links to the primary key of another. In C, malloc used for static memory allocation, dynamic memory allocation, free memory defining. Dynamic memory allocation. Which of these is not an object-oriented concept? Compilation. What does URL consist of? Protocol domain path. Which attack involves overwhelming a server with traffic? DDoS, distributed denial of service. What is the purpose of CSS? To style and layout web pages. Which register holds the result of ALU operations? Accumulator. In Python, which data type is immutable? Tuple. What is virtual memory? Using hard disk space to simulate extra RAM. Which of these is a programming paradigm? Functional programming. What is the function of the DHCP server? To automatically assign IP address to clients. Which bitwise operator is used to set a specific bit to 1? Or is correct answer. What is machine learning? Installing OS, repairing hardware, algorithms that allow computers to learn, teaching type algorithms that allow computers to learn from data without explicit program. What is the purpose of JSON? Data interchange format, JavaScript object notation. In a database, what is a view? Virtual table based on the result set of SQL statement, backup, grab, physical table, a virtual table based on the result set of an SQL statement. तो ये था सेट 3 कंप्यूटर का 100 क्वेश्चंस का अगर आपको ये क्वेश्चंस हाई यील्ड लगे हों तो आप सेट 4 के लिए कमेंट कर सकते हो।